Taiwan's 28-day election countdown officially begins. We find out why many have to travel far and wide to cast their ballot.
Part of the reason for that is that there is concerns about fraud or voter impersonation.
Taiwan's delegation to COP28 is back in Taipei, and they're not happy.
It's also a failure for those who consider not including fossil fuel phase-out in the text is a matter of life and death.
And real and virtual worlds collide at a show in Taipei. Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao with 30 minutes of the latest. Thanks for joining. Taiwan is accusing China of political manipulation. That's after Beijing ruled that Taipei's ban on Chinese imports is a trade barrier. The Chinese ruling comes less than a month before Taiwan's January elections. China began an investigation in April after Taipei placed restrictions on around 2,500 Chinese products. Beijing says the ban violates both international trade rules and a cross-strait deal signed in 2010. Taiwan has called the ruling unacceptable. It says disputes should be handled through the World Trade Organization. Taiwan's presidential race is now officially underway. Louise Watt reports from the Central Election Commission.
Taiwan is entering its official election season. The Central Election Commission has just announced the names of the presidential and vice presidential candidates on the ballot. There's no surprises there, but Taiwan's 28-day official election campaign period kicks off now.
竞选活动的期间呢，将自112年的12月16日开始，一直到113年的1月12日为止。
That period means special rules are now starting. For example, any campaign material, whether that's banners, flags or billboards, has to be marked clearly as promotional. Having to abide by those rules are the candidates from the three main parties, Lai Ching-te and Bi Kim-hsiao from the ruling DPP or Democratic Progressive Party, Hou You-yi and Zhao Shaokang from the main opposition Kuomintang or KMT, and Ko Wen-je and his running mate Cynthia Wu from the third party, the Taiwan People's Party. You may have thought that campaigning had been going on for months already in Taiwan's elections, but now it's set to ramp up as the candidates rally to convince Taiwan's 19.5 million eligible voters that they're the best on the ballot. Joseph Wu, Yu Chen Lai and Louise Watt at the Central Election Commission for TaiwanPlus.
A new poll shows that the DPP's Bi Kim-hsiao is the most popular of Taiwan's vice presidential candidates. The poll by news outlet TVBS put Xiao's favorability at 45%. The KMT's Zhao Shaokang came in second with 32%, and the TPP's Cynthia Wu came last with 16%. The pollsters also found that Zhao was the most actively disliked, but that Wu's unpopularity has been rising the fastest. To find out how the presidential candidates' running mates are affecting the race, John Van Trieste spoke to political analyst Brian Hugh.
Are Taiwan's voters thinking about the vice presidential candidates at all in this race? Are they likely to influence the outcome at all of who people vote for?
Yeah, I actually do think they do, in the sense that it helps brand the presidential campaign. For example, the KMT with Hou You-yi, he's normally perceived as a more moderate candidate in terms of the pan-blue cap. But however, his choice, Zhao Shaokang, is much more hardline on these traditional stances of the pan-blue cap. And as for the DPP, for example, Xiao Bi Kim, she also moderates Lai's image in that sense, in the sense that there are those that view him as more pro-independence and potentially endangering Taiwan because of these stances. But then she, with her history as a representative of the US, can shore up his credentials on this front. Presenting him as then less hardline, as able to maintain stable relations with the US and so forth.
So what do you make of the results of this poll? Because there is quite a wide gap in terms of both favorability and unfavorability.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting, actually, because perhaps does indicate something about how things will play out in the election. I think there is a difference, a very stark difference in how these three candidates are viewed, and that perhaps plays into the way that they view these campaigns overall. And as the Pan Blue vote is expected to remain divided, I think that also points to the way in which William Lai is pulling ahead in this race.
So do you think this presages or hints at how the election will turn out overall? Will the vice presidential candidates really determine the outcome or help determine the outcome of this election in any way?
I don't actually think voters are thinking about that these vice presidential candidates are a heartbeat away from the presidency per se, more as that what they indicate about the presidential candidates they're working with. Because particularly the TPP and the KMT, they announced their vice presidential candidates very late in a kind of ad hoc manner after their prospective alliance did not work out. They both lost the effect that would normally come with announcing a vice presidential candidate of having a temporary boost in approval ratings. You did see that to some extent with the KMT, but overall, I think it was only the DPP that went through the normal process of announcing the vice presidential candidate and having a kind of cycle of publicity around that.
Once again, that was political analyst Brian Hugh discussing Taiwan's vice presidential candidates and their impact on the election. Many voters are figuring out ways to get back home to cast their ballot because Taiwan doesn't do absentee voting. John Van Trieste explains once again.
Democracy at work again. Soon, voters in Taiwan will line up at the ballot box to choose a president and lawmakers. Many will travel far to get to their polling place, some for most of the day. That's because in Taiwan, you can't necessarily vote where you live. Instead, you vote wherever your family is registered. When election day comes, that's where you have to go, even if it's at the other end of the country. Try to vote anywhere else, and you'll be turned away. It is possible to break off from your family's registry and declare your own household, but it's a bureaucratic process, and you have to pay more tax. So most people who've moved away just make the trek home to vote. The system is especially hard on Taiwanese citizens living abroad who have to stay registered in Taiwan and fly back before Election Day. Taiwan isn't the only country with this kind of family registry system, but it's unique in not allowing early or absentee voting of any kind.
Unlike South Korea and Japan, Taiwan has never actually developed an alternative procedure. Part of the reason for that is that there's concerns about fraud or voter impersonation.
It may keep elections transparent and quick, but not all citizens think it should be quite so rigid. One big push to change things came ahead of elections last year, back when COVID-19 rules were still in force. These rules kept thousands who were still in quarantine from being able to go out and cast their ballot.
So there was a lot of criticism directed at the Central Election Commission then for not developing an alternative mechanism for people to vote. And the CEC's response was, well, we don't have legal authority to do that.
And so things stayed as they are. This year has seen another call for change, this time from prison inmates. Although this group is legally allowed to vote, they're prevented from doing so in practice.
2005年以后，褫夺公权里面已经把不能投票这个规定拿掉了，所以其实受刑人其实他从头到尾就是有投票权的，在已经有18年的时间，他们有投票权，但是没有投到票。
But like a failed prison break, lawsuits to change this have made it through the court, then hit a wall. Taiwan's constitutional court has rejected a suit by NGO Prison Watch that would require prisons to set up polling places, effectively a form of absentee voting. Prison Watch says it hasn't given up the fight. It even says there's been some signs, though disappointingly small ones, that things could still change.
其实在前2年的时候，行政院有推一个公民投票法，是全国不在籍投票的。但很可惜的是说，这一届的那个立法委员到这是最后一个会期了，都没有让这个法案就是真的有通过。而且也比较不敢去碰。
But it says Taiwan's lawmakers, and the public more generally, just aren't comfortable with the idea of absentee voting.
所以我们以前选举其实也是蛮黑暗的，有那种突然关灯票就丢下去的，或者是说有那种很多作票的情形，那也因此就是会让我们对于像是就是通讯投票的信心不足。
But that was decades ago, when Taiwan was still under authoritarian rule. Since then, it's become a robust and transparent democracy. But it still has a way to go to ensure all citizens can reasonably exercise their right to take part and have their voice heard. Howard Zhang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The UN's COP28 climate summit concluded this week. Despite not being able to attend in an official capacity, a Taiwanese delegation went to Dubai for the event. Our reporter Reese Ayers caught up with a member of the group, Jasmine Wu, here in Taipei.
COP28, the UN's climate summit, has just finished in Dubai, with all official members signing a deal that promises to transition away from fossil fuels. What was the general feeling in the room in Dubai when the deal was done?
Well, it's not all we dreamed of, but it's a clear and strong signal that this is the first time that it mentioned transitioning away from fossil fuel. But it's not to sugarcoat that it's also a failure for those who consider not including fossil fuel phase out in the text is a matter of life and death.
Given that Taiwan is not recognized by the United Nations and couldn't attend the event in any official capacity, what was Taiwan trying to achieve by sending a delegation to Dubai?
Even though we don't have a seat at the table as a negotiator, as Taiwan delegate, we can still participate as an observer. And as an observer, you can do many things like participating in side events, to network, to learn and gain some insights from people from all over the world for solutions that exist out there.
How does the outcome of COP28 impact Taiwan? Was Taiwan even considered during the drafting process?
Each COP is really impactful towards Taiwan's corporations, towards Taiwan's civil societies and governments, because we try to align our strategies with the international goal. So it is some kind of indicator or a goal that Taiwanese civil societies scrutinize whether governments achieve their goal.
Is Taiwan's current trajectory in reducing reliance on fossil fuels compatible with the deal signed at COP28?
This year, the COP28 decision mentions that we need to triple our renewable energy capacity and also double the energy efficiency by 2030. And our government said we are aligned with this goal. However, some academics said that our carbon reduction targets are not aligned with what scientists had said in order to achieve limiting the temperature below 1.5 degrees.
Once again, that was Reese Ayers speaking with Jasmine Wu, a member of the Taiwan Youth Climate Coalition who attended the COP28 climate summit. Hundreds of land crabs have died in Taiwan's south. Renovation work on an ancient trail stopped the crabs from reaching the coast to breed. It's thought they were killed by exposure to the sun and dehydration. The local township office says it will remove a new cement retaining wall to give the crabs better access to the shore. An award-winning virtual reality show is back in Taipei. It's an international collaboration between Spain, France, and Taiwan. Yu Huang has more.
Virtual reality, made with dancers' real movements. The show is called The Bankali, and won the Best VR Experience at the Venice Film Festival in 2021. Its creator, Spanish choreographer Blancali, brought the experience to Taiwan earlier this year, but it was so popular that the country's creative content agency wanted it to stay, so an upgraded version of the show is now playing in Taipei. For this version, they tweaked the choreography, incorporating elements created by the top Taiwanese tech and design teams. It also takes place in an unconventional space, a science museum.
我们也会持续的跟很多的这个场域方，像科教馆、像平台方 HTC 这样的一个场域的这个合作者，能够让它落地。那也希望说帮助更多的这个内容制造业者，能够看得到商机，不是只有做艺术而已。
将手放下去，是的，稍微的往这边，很好。
Up to 10 participants can experience the performance at once, guided by 2 professional dancers, all wearing VR sets. Seeing digital art as vital to the future of the industry, Taiwanese tech giant HTC founded Vive Arts in 2017, focused on offering tech support to experimental art. For this show, they use a type of tracking technology called location-based entertainment. It lets participants share the same real-time interactive experience in a virtual environment.
里面还会有丛林啊，然后有一些密道什么之类的，就是很神秘的感觉。对，这个比较大，很大的规模。
我们能做到这么大的场域，我们讲的场域不是你们现场看到的，更大的可以到比如说500平方米、1000平方米这么大场域，同时连接比如说100台、80台头盔。
欢迎大家，欢迎大家，来，这是我的花园，我是 Jenny， 也是这里的主人。
To help participants immerse themselves in the story, interactive theatrical arrangements based on the virtual scenes are set up at the entrance. Made by a Taiwanese design team, they want to level up participants' sensory experiences.
对于惊喜制造来说，这一次是技术含量最高的，包含 VR， 包含网络串流，还有硬体设备等等，我觉得是非常大的挑战。
With the success of this international collaboration, the organizers hope this business model can bring more opportunities for Taiwan's tech and art scene. Klein Wang, Biqi Zhuang, and Yujin Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, locals in Central Taiwan take on a special diet to celebrate a century-old festival.
经历过人生的话，你发现说我们大部分都是爱美的。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
There's so many things that I wish the world could see.
It is amazing to watch this captain maneuver this giant ship.
It takes 3 days to cook this. The flavor is unbelievable, incredible.
And it's my turn to make something inspired by Chef Gore. It's going to be quite a challenge.
Can you imagine that?
It's surreal. Yes, so real.
I can't give up. I got some ass kicking to do.
Nice move.
We're pushing each other to explore and experiment in new, different ways.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
很多时候是我们眼睛看不到的地方。We might encounter mishaps and mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day,
it just transmits something straight from the heart. Yes.
Cheers.
Bon appetit.
It is about the fun and it's about the glamour and it's also about something much deeper than that.
Sometimes you just gotta seize the opportunity. You just gotta do it.
Have a place where you're appreciated for you exactly as you are, and where you can shine and be seen.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. South Korea and Japan scrambled fighter jets to monitor foreign planes near Korea's airspace. 2 Chinese and 4 Russian military planes were spotted in South Korea's air defense identification zone, a sort of buffer area. Those jets did not violate the country's territorial airspace. Hong Kong police have issued arrest warrants for 5 pro-democracy activists based overseas. They join a growing list of wanted activists who've left Hong Kong, including 8 that were announced in July. They're accused of violating the city's national security law and colluding with foreign forces. The maximum penalty for these charges is life in prison. Police are offering a reward of $128,000 each for information that could lead to their arrest. Most of them are now living in the US and UK. Officials from the two countries have condemned the warrants. The long-awaited trial of Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai begins next week. Hughes reports on Hong Kong's most prominent national security case.
From the front of Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests to a police raid and handcuffs, media tycoon and democracy activist Jimmy Lai has spent the past 3 years in prison, accused of sedition and colluding with foreign forces. He is the most prominent person to be charged under Hong Kong's sweeping national security laws, and his trial is finally set to begin.
The reason we have to fight for it is fighting for our dignity. I think once we give up, we're giving up fighting for our freedom and democracy. We are kind of giving up our dignity as a human.
Lai founded the Apple Daily newspaper, known for its critical reporting on the Chinese government and strong support for Hong Kong's 2019 pro-democracy movement. Lai was arrested in 2020 when 200 police officers raided the newspaper's offices. In the 3 years since then, he's been convicted on lesser charges of illegal assembly and fraud, but he faces life in prison if found guilty under the national security law. Beijing put the law into effect in 2020 to quash pro-democracy movements. It's been widely criticized by human rights groups.
We found that in Hong Kong, national security is frequently being used as a pretext to curb voices of opposition. And the national security law itself has given the Hong Kong authorities very powerful tools by which they can curb freedom of expression and other human rights.
Lai's trial has drawn international attention. Though he is a UK citizen, his request for a British lawyer was denied. Instead, he will face a panel of hand-picked judges without a jury. His son has been traveling the world, speaking out on behalf of his 76-year-old father.
Hong Kong has always been a litmus test for how China views the world and how they view the liberties that we have in the free world. Now, my father stood on really at the front of that. He was he is the oldest political prisoner in Hong Kong.
Lai's arrest in 2020 was a milestone in the decline of press freedom in Hong Kong. His conviction would represent the final nail in its coffin. Chris Ma and Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
In sports, Sho Otani has signed the biggest contract in sports history. The Japanese baseball player took the stage with his new team during a press conference at their stadium.
明確な勝利を目指すビジョンと、豊富な球団の歴史を持つ、このロサンゼルスドジャースの一員になれることを、今心より、嬉しく思うと同時に今すごく興奮しています。
Otani's groundbreaking contract guarantees him $700 million for 10 years of play with the team. However, $680 million of that will be deferred between 2034 and 2043 so the Dodgers can bring more talent onto the team. Otani's annual salary of $70 million is more than the entire payroll of some other clubs. A town in Central Taiwan is celebrating a 100-year-old Taoist festival. Tiffany Wong has the story.
Sending up a signal for luck with the Chinese symbol for good fortune. These residents of Puli, a small town in central Taiwan, are celebrating an over 100-year-old Taoist tradition to bring peace and good health to their town. Known as the Qingjiao Festival, it's a week-long ceremony held every 3 years. Residents pay a small tithe to help build these altars where they welcome deities, including Taiwan's sea goddess Mazu, to the town. It's a practice that's been recognized as an intangible cultural asset by the county government.
那这123年的当中，它从来都没有中断过。前埔里镇的镇民几乎是总动员，所以因此才能够得到评审委员的青睐，所以列为无形文化资产。
One of the major customs is adopting a vegetarian diet for the week. This year, some locals got entrepreneurial and opened new vegetarian shops.
我跟我朋友是想说这一段时间有空，对，就想说来尝试做一下这个生意看看这样。对。这几天生意还好？这算是我们第2天啊，就是也算刚开始。目前的起头算是还不错。
And while visitors may not have expected to be caught in the middle of this local event, some didn't seem to mind.
这个时阵可能较歹做啊。较歹做吼。无来入境随俗啊，安尼啦。
Despite the food restrictions, it's one of the most exciting times of year to visit the town. And these dedicated residents will make sure that this tradition continues for years to come. Dolphine Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Freezing weather has gripped China's north, blanketing the capital Beijing in thick snow. Forecasters are warning temperatures in the region could drop to historic lows. China has been hit by record-breaking weather extremes this year. The temperature difference between the north and south of the country broke 80 degrees Celsius this week. That's about it for this edition of TaiwanPlus News. Don't forget to check out TaiwanPlus's website and our social media. Before we go, I'm going to leave you with images of a light display at Sydney's largest Catholic cathedral in the run-up to the Christmas holidays. We're only 10 days away, can you believe it? I'm Liao signing off. Stay classy and see you next time.